From a distance, the peaceful burden looked like a cathedral adrift in space. Smooth curves of alabaster hull gleamed under the starlight, adorned with symbols of unity, flowing calligraphy in dozens of galactic dialects. It made no attempt to appear imposing. No visible weapons, no escort fleet, only a glowing halo of harmonic shielding, humming softly like a lullaby. To the Zarnath and their rivals it was a joke. They send this? Scoffed War Master Durak of the Threx Dominion, a quadrupedal brute encased in obsidian armor. He watched the live feed with a sneer as the human vessel slowed and positioned itself between the Zarnath and Threx fleets, two forces on the verge of a war that could engulf 3 sectors. They truly believe this ship of pacifists can hold back bloodlust? His advisor chittered in agreement. Their species overestimates their influence. The Galactic Concord was a human vanity project. They bring peace like a sheep tries to silence wolves. Inside the peaceful burden, the atmosphere could not have been more different. The hallways were filled with the scent of sandalwood and a low, meditative hum. Light refracted through living crystal walls, casting soft patterns that moved like slow rivers. The crew wore robes, not uniforms. They were poets, artists, linguists, each trained in the arts of nonviolent resolution. They were not soldiers, at least not anymore. Ambassador Kel Oren stood at the center of the Harmony Chamber, hands folded within his sleeves, eyes closed as he listened to the ship's AI recite the current state of tension. Zarnath fleet deployed 32 capital-class vessels. Threx forces have activated all shielding protocols. Neither side has yet fired, but trajectory overlap is reaching 92% proximity. Estimated time to crossfire, 4 hours, 14 minutes. Kel exhaled slowly. Prepare the Garden of Assembly, he said. We'll host the initial dialogue in the open dome. A younger envoy, Nari, hesitated. Do you think they'll come, sir? They always come, Kel replied, smiling faintly. Curiosity is stronger than hate. Even in warlords, the Garden of Assembly was a marvel in itself. A vast transparent dome open to the stars, filled with gravity-manipulated walkways winding through trees, water streams, and alien flora cultivated from 50 worlds. In the center, a round table of polished obsidian, deliberately kept small, forcing closeness, encouraging eye contact. Within the hour, 2 shuttles arrived. One bore the angular red insignia of the Zarnath Protectorate. The other, the jagged bone crest of the Threx Dominion. Suspicion was written in every movement of their guards. Kel stood alone in the garden's heart, robes flowing, unarmed. You come with no guards, muttered Zarnath delegate Vereen, her 4 emerald eyes narrowing. You trust us? I trust the sanctity of shared air, Kel replied warmly. And the weight of consequence. Charming nonsense, hissed War Master Durak, stepping forward with a sneer. Your ship sings, your halls smell like flowers. You think this disarms us? No, Kel said, turning to face him directly. I think it gives you pause. Silence. Then laughter, rough, guttural from Durak. Vereen only watched, calculating. And yet they sat. They always sat. That was the first victory. For 3 hours the humans mediated. Discussions teetered between snide threats and reluctant cooperation. Kel quoted ancient Zarnath poets to Vereen. He offered Durak ceremonial tea brewed from Threx spores that only grew in starlit caverns. The gestures worked. To a point. Enough to delay missiles. Enough to make them think. But aboard the alien flagships other minds moved. Why do they act so calm? Hissed Commander Jewel of the Threx. No fleet behind them. No weapons. Why are the humans so certain? Their arrogance is habitual, another officer replied. They've grown drunk on reputation. Perhaps. But even on the peaceful burden, there were precautions, whispers and rituals not shared with outsiders. Far below the garden, beyond the inhabited decks, lay a sealed level simply marked containment. No visitors. No access. Not even the envoys held keys. Only the AI did, and even then only under explicit emergency conditions. There was no personnel stationed there. No guards. Because there were no guards capable of guarding what was inside. Nari had once asked Kel about it. Why do we carry prisoners? She had whispered, eyes wide, long before she earned her robes. Kel's expression had grown still, not fearful but reverent. Not prisoners, he said. Warnings. Sealed in sleep, buried under treaties. They are humanity's final punctuation mark. Soldiers? No. Weapons that looked like people. Then why bring them? Kel looked toward the stars. Because if diplomacy fails, we cannot fail with it. Back in the garden, the discussion took a sharp turn. This is pointless, Durak growled. You think we won't notice your weakness? You have no leverage. You have nothing. Kel remained calm. You're right. That made Durak pause. I have no leverage. No power to compel you. I have only words, and the hope you're wise enough to weigh them. He stood, placing a slender object on the table. A small hourglass of ionized sand, already flowing. That is the time we have left before your fleets fire. If, before the final grain falls, either of you still believes war is better than compromise, we will leave. He bowed. Because there will be nothing left for us to protect. The ambassadors left without agreement. They needed to confer. Everyone knew what that meant. War was still the likeliest outcome. That night, Kel sat alone in the meditation deck, staring at the stars. His AI companion flickered beside him. Shall I prepare emergency dispersal protocols? No, Kel said. Not yet, Ambassador. If they attack, we will not survive. I know. Do you believe in their mercy? No. Kel stood slowly. His hands trembled. He stared at the floor beneath him, as if seeing far beyond the metal and crystal. I believe in our burden. We carry it because no one else can. But if they make us let go, his voice dropped to a whisper, then may the galaxy remember what we kept hidden. Far below, in the sealed core, a blue light began to flicker. Just once. Then again, like something deep in the hull had stirred. The hourglass ran out. Grain by grain, the last sliver of diplomatic hope slipped into silence. When the final crystal fleck dropped, no one said a word. Not the envoys, not the AI, not even the windless garden air. Only the distant hum of ship systems remained. Ambassador Kel Oren stood before the empty table in the Garden of Assembly. The alien delegates had departed without resolution. Their guards had not bowed. There had been no final exchange of symbols, no parting courtesy. That, in itself, was a message. Kel closed the hourglass, returned it to his robe, and walked away. He did not sigh. He did not flinch. But deep below him, something did. The Threx Dominion acted first. Just before the Peaceful's burden could begin retreat protocols, 3 boarding pods streaked across the void, slamming into the ship's outer hull with a coordinated thump. Unlike most military craft, the burden's shielding was designed for impact absorption and environmental stability. Not war. The breach alarms didn't sound as sirens. They whispered. Containment threat detected. Tier 3 breach. Nari spun in the observation deck, staring at the security feed. They're inside. Decks 20 through 22, the AI confirmed. Maintenance level. Non-critical. But Nari knew what sat below those decks. What slept there. She sprinted from the chamber, robes flaring behind her. Kel would know what to do. He had to. But by the time she reached the central lift, it was already locked out. The Threx soldiers expected resistance. They were trained for chaos. Narrow corridors, enemy suppressive fire, automated defenses. But what they found was peace. Soft-lit passageways, walls lined with alien poetry and acoustic dampeners. No bullets, no laser blasts, just silence and the occasional flicker of a projection. A child reading beside a floating globe, an alien elder teaching dance. A human couple weeping with joy as stars bloomed around them. It unsettled them. One grunted. Where's the bridge? AI said down 4 levels. They moved fast, spreading through maintenance shafts and subconduits. They didn't see the eyes watching from within the walls. Tiny lenses blinking awake for the first time in decades. Ambassador Kel stood calmly in the Garden of Assembly, awaiting their arrival. 3 armored soldiers entered through the high archway, black suits hissing with internal pressure, visors reflecting the dome's starlight. Weapons ready. No diplomacy. No words. Kel didn't move. "I imagine you're looking for the command codes," he said quietly. No reply. "They don't exist. Not in the way you think." The largest soldier stepped forward. "Then you'll come with us." Kel tilted his head. "I won't. Then you'll die." "I know." And he smiled, gently, almost sadly. The soldier fired once. The pulse hit Kel's chest, and he crumpled like silk in the wind. Elsewhere, in the heart of the ship, the containment core detected Ambassador Orin's death. A key triggered. The system, old and buried, activated like a breath drawn after centuries. Primary failsafe offline. Containment override. Permission granted. One by one, the lights along the corridor blinked from blue to red. The first Threx squad to descend into the containment sublevels found themselves in darkness. Their lights flickered, then died. Their scanners scrambled. One soldier barked in frustration, slamming his helmet against the wall, only to find it wasn't a wall at all. It was cold glass, thick, reinforced, and inside it something moved, just a shape at first, humanoid. Then the lights came on in a slow, dreadful wave. Pod after pod, row after row, dozens of containment chambers, each holding a frozen human. Not sleeping, stilled, as though time had pressed pause. The soldiers froze. Each pod bore a plaque with a name and a red sigil, an old Earth symbol for classified threat. Aristos Vale, code. Red Sun Doctrine. Kazmir Hall, code. Silent Tyrant. Shao Katsu, code. Hivebreaker. Lomak Shin, code. Gray Logic. Eleni Vorsk, code. Laughing Star. And more. So many more. One soldier stumbled back. "What is this?" Then the containment lights turned yellow. Up on the bridge, Nari reached the auxiliary interface, heart hammering. AI, stop the override. Unable. Failsafe command must be authorized by surviving senior personnel. Nari slammed her palm against the glass. "Kel is dead. Who's left?" "You are Envoy Nari Vel." Her breath caught. "No, I was never cleared for." Promotion acknowledged. Authority transferred. "Proceed?" She stared at the prompt. Her reflection in the console looked wrong. Shaking, unsure, wide-eyed with fear. "Can I stop them?" She whispered. "You may attempt. But containment is compromised. They are waking up." Back in the containment halls, the pods hissed. One by one, locks disengaged. Frost crept outward. Steam hissed into the air. A single figure stepped forward from the mist, barefooted, covered only in cryofilm. He blinked, smiled, and the Threx soldiers opened fire. It didn't help. He moved faster than they could track, disarming one, flipping another into a bulkhead with such precision it felt rehearsed. The third tried to run. He didn't make it 2 steps. The figure walked over the fallen soldiers, picked up a dropped visor, and placed it on his own head. A synthetic voice inside the helmet whispered, "Threx Dominion. Active status. Mission. Breach and extract." The man chuckled. "They always come for us in the end." Elsewhere, other pods were opening. Laughter, screams, and worse, singing. Each awakened warrior brought something different. Kazmir Hall didn't speak, but projected raw fear into the minds of anyone nearby. Entire teams collapsed before seeing him. Eleni Vorsky walked the hallways humming a tune only she could hear. Every system she touched began rewriting itself. The AI tried to block her. Failed. Lomak Shin immediately took over the ship's tactical network, rerouting the backup engine thrust toward the enemy vessels, preparing them for what was to come. The peaceful burden was no longer peaceful. On the Threx flagship, War Master Durak leaned forward as an officer reported the kill. "The diplomat is dead," she said proudly. "No resistance, just like we thought." "Good," Durak rumbled. "No more delays. Charge weapons. Let the galaxy see what becomes of cowards." But even as the order was given, another feed crackled to life. Hijacked. Not by the humans who had greeted them. Not by the envoy Kel. A man's face appeared, scarred and smiling. Behind him, The lights of the containment bay flickered with motion. "Hello," he said. "We're awake." Durak's smile faded. "Who are you?" The man tilted his head. "We were what humanity feared more than death. So they locked us away. They called us monsters, and we agreed." His eyes narrowed. "But you opened the door." The feed cut to static. For decades, peaceful Spurden drifted from conflict to conflict as a floating embassy, its true nature hidden behind white robes and soft voices. It was called a peacecraft, a sanctuary, a temple in motion. But the temple had a tomb. And now the tomb was breaking open. Casimir Hall awoke first. Cryofluid dripped from his shoulders like blood from a sword as he stepped into the dim corridor. His body, lithe and scarred, carried the tension of someone who had never truly rested. As the mist cleared, he breathed deeply, and his breath fogged into shapes, into patterns. A red mist rose from the floor, coiling toward him like a serpent. The Threx soldier nearest him screamed, then stopped, mid-breath, frozen in place. Another backed away, but his hands wouldn't move. His weapon wouldn't fire. The world bent, sound warped. The corridor itself seemed to lean. Casimir turned to them slowly. "You're loud," he whispered. "Too loud." Their minds shattered before their bones did. 3 levels above, Narivel raced through the halls toward the containment deck, a biometric key freshly embedded in her trembling palm. The ship's AI, now fully active in emergency override mode, spoke in clipped tones beside her. "For stasis units compromised. 17 in pre-wake sequence. No diplomatic solution viable. Recommend scuttling protocol." "No," Nari gasped. "Not yet. Containment units designed for permanent lock. Reversal is irreversible. Diplomats dead. Primary failsafe removed." "I know. Just let me talk to them." "I am uncertain talking is an effective strategy. They were human once. So am I. You are insufficiently dangerous for them to respect. That's why it has to be me." Eleni Vorsky wandered the ship like a ghost. She hummed an ancient tune, one she had written during the Martian insurgencies, back when she turned drone networks into symphonies of slaughter. Her fingers traced walls, leaving behind glyphs that flickered and pulsed. Security systems deactivated themselves. Firewalls turned translucent. In the command archive, a single console blinked. A digital voice sputtered. "Please identify." Eleni touched it. The screen began to sing. To her, everything was music, motion, frequency. The ship, the stars, the minds of her former captors. She was already composing something new, a counterpoint to the diplomatic symphony. A war requiem. Lomak Shin, known during the Centauri Fracture Wars as Grey Logic, opened his eyes as if from a long nap. He stretched once, then immediately walked to a wall panel and pressed 3 seemingly random buttons. A hidden door opened. Inside, rows of portable AI cores, raw data coils, and emergency tactical schematics, buried here decades ago. He didn't speak. He simply activated. Fleets began to move. Using the peaceful Spurden's limited comm relays and piggybacking onto alien networks, he painted false readings, redirected patrols, and sabotaged targeting sensors across the Threx fleet. He didn't need an army, just code. And finally, Aristos Vale. He did not awaken easily. His stasis chamber was deeper, hidden within a vault behind false panels, buried under more encryption than any of the others. His plaque read, "Do not engage. Do not interact. Do not release." A manual trigger had opened his pod. A soldier's curiosity? A glitch? Or simply fate? He emerged slowly, eyes closed, hands folded as if in prayer. Tall, perfectly still. No visible scars. No signs of augmentation. Only the presence. The unnatural stillness of someone who had once ended 5 wars not through force, but through perfection of it. The others had legends. Aristos had silence. He walked barefoot down the corridor. The doors opened without command. Sensors refused to scan him. Even the AI whispered lower when he passed. Nari reached the outer edge of the containment core and paused. The air was different, heavier, charged, as though memory itself had mass. She passed a mirror, stared at herself for a second. Her diplomatic robes were torn. Ashen blood stained the hem. Her face was pale with exhaustion, resolve hanging by threads. And then she saw him, the man standing in the corridor, motionless, watching her. "Aristos Vale," she said. He tilted his head. "Do I know you?" "No, but I know you." She stepped forward. Slowly. "They say you once calculated the total number of lives required to end a 1,000-year conflict." "Yes," he replied simply, "and then sacrificed exactly that number. Not one more." "Yes." "Why did you agree to be sealed here?" Aristos looked at her, eyes unreadable. "Because peace is too precious to be left to men like me." Nari swallowed. "But it's gone now." He nodded. "I know." On the bridge of the Threx flagship, chaos bloomed. Communications scrambled. Holomaps glitched. Officers shouted over each other as sensor data warped. "Who's jamming us?" screamed Commander Jewel. "They're not jamming. They're editing." Then the lights dimmed. A single message appeared on every screen, translated into every dialect known to the galaxy. "You broke the seal. Now witness what you feared." Suddenly, 6 Threx warships fired on each other. Then a dreadnought veered off course and rammed into a station it had just been deployed to defend. Another turned inside out, imploding from a singularity burst launched from within its own hull. None of it made sense. None of it should have been possible. But the Peaceful's burden had released minds who designed impossibility for a living. On board the ship, in a repurposed conference chamber now flickering with combat data and AI code, the Awakened stood together for the first time. Eleni Vorsky played with a shard of holographic sound. Casimir Hall crouched on the table, his shadow moving in directions the light didn't allow. Lomakshin sat in lotus position, eyes closed, running simulations. Nari entered, flanked by Aristos. They all turned. No one spoke. Then Aristos said, "We must determine intention." Casimir grinned. "Oh, I think they made their intention very clear." Eleni tilted her head. "The diplomats are gone. The rules are broken. The leash is off." Nari stood her ground. "And what about restraint? About ethics? You chose to be locked away. Because we trusted the world to never need us again," Aristos replied. He looked at her. "Now they've decided otherwise." From orbit, the Peaceful's burden was changing. The diplomatic hull, designed for resonance, beauty, and cultural symbolism, began to shift. Panels slid away. Obsolete weapons discarded in favor of systems never listed in the schematics. Unmarked ports opened. Dozens of black modules, long dormant, rotated into view, each one designed not for combat, but for tactical misdirection, gravitational sabotage, and sentient signal disruption. These weren't weapons of war. They were thought anchors, culture killers, strategies made flesh. And at the center of it all, Earth's most dangerous minds took control. Not to start a war, but to finish one before it began. Because that's what they did. They weren't peacekeepers. They were the people you sent when peace had already failed. The Peaceful's burden no longer whispered. It growled. Above the pale diplomatic hull, flickers of unnatural light pulsed along retracted seams, coils of energy too volatile for conventional scans. Ship-to-ship comms were silent. The once open diplomatic beacon that welcomed emissaries and poets now broadcast only a pulse. Steady, rhythmic, deliberate. To the alien fleets surrounding it, it was the sound of a countdown. On the Threx flagship Griefzone Victory, War Master Durak stood before a fractured projection. All across the Threx fleet, ships had either gone dark or turned rogue. His second-in-command now floated in pieces in the corner of the bridge after an AI routing accident redirected internal security drones. He bared his tusks. "Target the human ship," he snarled. "All guns. Burn it from the stars." A junior officer stepped forward, shaking. "Sir, the targeting systems won't lock. Their signal distorts range-finding algorithms. The ship appears in 6 places at once." Then guess. Inside Peaceful's burden, Aristos Vale watched the fleet dance like moths too close to flame. His fingers traced invisible lines through the holographic air. "They've begun blind firing," said Lomakshin, seated at a half-formed console made of adaptive code. 17 volleys. None in correct trajectory. They're afraid, murmured Eleni Vorsky. I like them better this way. Narivel stood nearby, now wearing a simplified command interface grafted directly into her wrist. It pulsed with alerts she barely understood. I didn't bring you back for revenge, she said, not to any of them specifically. I brought you back because they killed peace. Casimir Hall grinned from the ceiling. Then let's make war unbearable. Aboard the Zarnath capital ship Daughter of Silence, Delegate Vereen watched the chaos unfold. Unlike the Threx, she did not attack immediately. Her people had studied human diplomacy for years, and now, as she witnessed the burden change, something ancient and terrifying coiled in her mind. This is no peace ship, she whispered. This is a tomb. No, corrected her military advisor. A vault, built to hold devils. Correction, said a voice across the bridge. Intercepted, uninvited, cold. It was Aristos Vale. We are not devils. We are what comes after angels fail. Back on the burden, containment pod doors continued to open, but selectively. Some warriors were never meant to wake again. A few, even Aristos feared. One pod opened slower than the rest. Inside, a woman lay still, her eyes closed. Her nameplate read, Mara Ilith, code. Absolution conditional. When her eyes opened, all ship lights dimmed for 1.4 seconds. The AI whispered, override, accepted. Nari flinched. Who is she? Aristos did not answer. He simply bowed his head. Mara stepped forward, barefoot, hair long, eyes glowing faintly with something not entirely human. She stared at the screen of enemy ships. What do you want from me? Silence, said Aristos. Then I will give you silence. The Threx opened fire. Plasma lances, kinetic harpoons, fusion burst warheads. All flung toward the now-dead diplomat ship. Only they never arrived. Half were absorbed by gravitational counter-distortions, bubbles of time-bending pressure that slowed projectiles to near stillness. Others were intercepted by laser-painting relays that caused them to detonate inside their own ships. A dreadnought's hypercore overloaded after its coolant system was hacked by what appeared to be a poem inserted into its software root. Within minutes, 13 Threx ships had destroyed themselves trying to destroy Peaceful's burden. And the burden had not fired a single weapon. Not yet. Nari watched it all unfold. Her chest felt like it was shrinking with every passing second. Aristos, she said quietly, this isn't containment. This is domination. He turned to her, calm as ever. You asked us to prevent war. This is prevention. You're dismantling fleets. Without killing a single commander, you've made them tear themselves apart. He nodded. Would you prefer corpses? She didn't answer. Eleni Vorsky activated the symphonic protocol. A wave of low-frequency sound rippled across space. Couldn't be heard by most species. But ships heard it. AI cores heard it. The Zarnath fleet, more disciplined than the Threx, attempted to resist. But one by one, their vessels began to slow. Not power failure, confusion. Their sensors showed false proximity warnings, inverted controls. One captain saw her own death projected across the hull in real time, looping every 30 seconds. Minds cracked, and into that chaos walked Casimir Hall. Casimir stepped onto a Zarnath ship alone. He needed no weapon. His mind fractured theirs before they could raise defenses. He wandered the corridors like a child in a museum. Officers screamed, clawed their own faces, saw versions of their failures stitched across every surface. One Zarnath soldier, a veteran of 100 battles, cowered beneath a navigation console, whispering prayers to no god in particular. Casimir crouched beside him. I am sorry, he said softly. They should have never let us out. Elsewhere, Lomakshin executed the Cascade Veil. An illusion, carefully timed. It made it appear that Peaceful's burden had split into dozens of ships. Each shadow ship reflected a possible history. Ones where Earth had not held back, had not chosen peace, had unleashed these minds centuries ago. Alien commanders began arguing over which ship was real. Half turned their weapons on decoys. Others fled. But there was no escape. Because Aristos Vale had not yet acted. Mara Elith now sat in the Garden of Assembly, the same place where Kel Oren had died. She did not cry for him, but she placed a hand on the table he had once used for peace. He believed in this, she whispered, and now I have to burn it down. Around her, vines grew unnaturally, not from soil, but from memory, from patterns embedded in the ship's life systems. A symbolic gesture, but it resonated through the ship like gospel. She looked up at the sky. "AI," she said, "mark this, no more tombs, no more sleep. Back on Earth, buried deep beneath the United Terran Accords Parliament complex." An emergency alert blinked for the first time in 91 years. Project Seraphim breached. Subjects active. A general stepped forward. Options? A diplomat beside him, white-haired, robe stained with time, answered in a voice too calm for the moment. "We have none. We broke the seal. Now we pray they remember who locked them up." In space, the war ended before it began. The Threx fleet fell silent. The Zarnath retreated. Entire star systems stopped transmitting, not from destruction, but from the sheer psychological weight of what had occurred. Billions watched from orbital feeds, and what they saw was not victory. It was a warning. The message, repeated across 1,000 languages. Peace was never weakness. It was containment, and you broke the seal. In the aftermath of annihilation narrowly avoided, space fell silent. No ships fired. No orders barked across comms. No engines flared in pursuit. The great fleets of the Threx Dominion and Zarnath Protectorate, so recently brimming with bravado, now drifted in stillness, their command structures decapitated not through violence but through disassembly of will. On board the peaceful Spurden, the air felt heavier, not with heat or pressure, but with the full weight of what had been done. Nari Vel sat alone in the now dim Garden of Assembly, the place where Kel Oren had offered peace, the place where blood had not yet been spilled, but might as well have been. The table remained intact, but scorched with data burned from Mara's last command. Outside the dome, stars wheeled silently through the viewport. She clutched her wrist console, watching diplomatic channels flood with one message: "We surrender. We retreat. Please respond." None received replies. The AI's voice eventually interrupted. "Envoy Vel, multiple systems request re-engagement with Terran Central Governance. Shall I accept transmission?" Nari didn't answer. She looked across the garden and saw them entering. Aristos Vale, Kazmir Hall, Eleni Vorsky, Lomakshin, Mara Elith, the ones humanity buried. They moved like a procession, not triumphant, not solemn, just aware. "We should leave," Nari said quietly. "Return to Earth. Let them see what you've done." Aristos stood across from her, watching the swirling sky. They already saw. What happens next isn't about fear. It's about memory. "We didn't fire a single weapon," said Eleni. "That's the funniest part. Just sound light doubt. A few scripts. A few thousand deaths," Nari replied. Kazmir shrugged. "Less than a standard war opening volley. But enough to end their appetite." "You're welcome," Lomak muttered. Nari stood. "So what now? You go back in the pods? Wait for the next failure? Let humanity bury you again and pretend you never woke?" Aristos stepped forward. "No," he said, and the word echoed, not through air but through intent. He looked up. "I won't be a warning anymore. None of us will." Across the galaxy, screens lit up. From diplomatic halls to pirate dens. From deep ocean vault cities to asteroid enclaves. Even in the abandoned black site where Project Seraphim had been conceived, data streams reconnected. A broadcast began. Hijacked, encrypted, untraceable. Only one face appeared, Aristos Vale. His voice was calm, measured, devoid of ornament. "I am Aristos Vale, once a general, once a prisoner, once a ghost. Humanity built the peaceful Spurden not as a symbol of virtue, but as a lid on a box we were too afraid to open. We were not heroes. We were containment, tactical absolutes. We did not choose peace. We were denied the chance to resist war. You broke the seal. You killed the peacemakers. And now you ask, What will we do? He leaned closer to the feed. We will not seek war. We will not seek vengeance. But we will not go back into the box. The response from Earth came swiftly. A subliminal diplomatic packet arrived with high-priority encryption, carrying a message from the United Terran Accord. Nari read it aloud. To the awakened, your actions have averted war. You have also made clear the consequences of breaching peace. The Accord cannot support your unrestrained activity. You are hereby requested to return to stasis for the stability of interstellar diplomacy. Please comply. This is not a command. It is a plea. The room was still. Then Aristos smiled. Mara, he said gently, what's the proper term for this moment? She closed her eyes. Recognition of obsolescence. He turned back to Nari. You asked what we are now. We're not prisoners, not weapons, and not gods. He pointed out toward the stars. We are something the galaxy hasn't seen before. We are witnesses to the fragility of peace, and we know what happens when it's broken. Lomaxian repurposed the ship's diplomatic systems. The peaceful Spurden began transmitting a new beacon, not one inviting peace, but one that declared presence. Its frequency was felt more than heard, like pressure behind the eyes, a signal that said, we are watching. Across dozens of systems, small conflicts dissolved overnight. Pirate guilds disbanded. Border raids halted. A treaty between the Sakari and the Breen, decades in limbo, was suddenly signed. In silence. No one wanted to test the burden again. Eleni Vorsky established a data foundation, encoding every known trick, tactic, and failsafe used by the Awakened into an open-source protocol called the Pledge. Any civilization could download it, use it, modify it, but with a catch. A single line of embedded code ensured it would deactivate if used for first-strike aggression. Could only defend. Nari met Aristos one last time on the upper spire of the ship, where transparent walls looked directly into the swirl of nebulae beyond. They still fear you, she said. They should, he replied. But I'd rather they remember us. As what? He looked thoughtful, then said, proof. Of what? That peace was never weakness. It was restraint. It was choice. It was effort. He looked down, then back at her. And now the burden is everyone's. The peaceful Spurden did not return to Earth. Instead, it became a drifting sanctuary. Not for diplomats, but for those who had seen too much of war to ever glorify it again. Some of the Awakened scattered, taking small vessels to distant systems. Others remained aboard, maintaining the ship's new status. Neutral, armed with memory, and always watching. Centuries later, cadets at the Galactic Concord Academy would learn about the peaceful Spurden in a required course, Containment Ethics and the Era of the Awakened. And in one of the course's earliest lessons, there would be a recorded voice. An old, quiet one, Kel Oren. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of choice. And sometimes, we make that choice not with words or weapons but with what we choose to keep sealed, what we choose not to unleash. But if you ever kill the ones who choose peace, make no mistake, you will meet the ones they kept locked away. The final image of the ship, captured in a still-rotating probe from the Threx remnant, would haunt the galaxy for centuries. The silhouette of a great white ship, drifting across the stars, surrounded by the wreckage of once proud armadas. Not because it destroyed them, but because it gave them a mirror. And the galaxy would remember, the burden of peace is heavy, but the cost of breaking it is far, far worse.